All right. So as a way of getting started, John, why don't you introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about what you're doing now?
Okay. Actually, maybe I tell my background. Actually, I graduated in University of Kent, where I actually graduated in UK, study actuarial science,
Hmm.
and then since then I go back to Hong Kong and then working for some local financial firm, Australian bank, and UK financial firm, US forest brokerage, and some Chinese, asset management companies as well. So I mean, now I actually working in an asset management companies and just help this company to have some growth, etc. But I would say that I actually have lots of different ways can help people. For example, sales and marketing, office set up in Hong Kong, etc. That would be my main focus, and also the setting up the license if necessary. I can actually help them to get a financial license in Hong Kong, and that's my
Mm.
main focus. Right now, yeah.
And for most of your career, have you been on the buy side then, or are you know,
I would say that most of the time actually is on the sales side.
sell side?
Sell side. But you need to be about buy side because sometimes some buy side they actually request me to do something for the buy side, for the fund, for the back end, to private investor. But sometimes they will also want me to bring some clients or maybe doing something like marketing to get more customers, retail customers. So we are doing quite a lot of stuff in the sales side as well.
Got it. And you talked about marketing and kind of getting more customers and the
Yeah.
selling aspect of that. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, what is the key to successful marketing when it comes to financial products?
I think that there are quite a lot of different stuff that we actually need to doing research, etc. For example, UK you are dealing with the FCA regulation, Hong Kong you are dealing with SFC, and US you are actually dealing with SEC regulation. I think the every regulation actually have a different type of regulator, especially in Hong Kong you need to open an account. When you open an account you need to be doing face to face now, face
Mm.
to face to make sure you are doing the KYC. But for the UKs, when actually open an account, and especially some forest account, you don't need to have a meet up face to face. You just need to be post your ID card, etc. Your 3 months address proof, and that will be actually verified. Um, and for the US, might be much more complicated because about the taxation. So that's why when from the Chinese or maybe from the Hong Kong's people, when they actually go to some US brokerage, they face some taxation problems. Especially if they actually got the US citizen, they need to pay double tax. You see, so that's why they will actually avoid them. So they're likely to be not using the US brokerage or US asset management companies. But I know that most of the people that actually set up something like Cayman Island Fund,
Yep.
and I think the regulation is much more similar to the UK standard, but I would say that it is much more easier to operate on that way to
Mm.
avoid something like taxation, etc. Yeah.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit more kind of about the Hong Kong culture. And
Mm,
before you do, let me give my perspective on that. I mean,
okay.
as a sell side analyst, all my career in Thailand, servicing fund managers in Hong Kong, Singapore, and across the world, Hong
Yeah.
Kong really has this unique uh, feeling for me, and that feeling is a feeling of kind of some openness, willingness to talk, and I really felt like I built some great relationships over the years in Hong Kong. And when I go to Hong Kong, I send out like a message to people I know there and say, hey, I'm in town and let's meet up. And even if it's only a couple days before I arrive, people are like, yeah, let's do it. And in other places, if you come to Thailand, you go to Singapore, other places like,
Mm,
please submit a letter, requesting, it's just like in Hong Kong,
really?
it seems like
Yeah.
the feeling that I have. Now, I also love the idea that Hong Kong is such a
Mm,
small area that I can literally walk fast, jump on a, subway and, that type of thing. So those are some of my kind of general perceptions, but maybe you can tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about, Hong Kong culture when it comes to
But
the
don't
financial
you think
industry.
don't you think that the Hong Kong's culture is, when you walking in the central, etc., the financial center, don't you feel that the people are walking fast?
Oh yeah, for
Have
sure.
you feeling that? Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
compared to UK or other countries, they might be not as fast as in Hong Kong there.
Yeah.
But I would say that Hong Kong compared to the financial industry compared to UK and US, they have something like it's quite different there because let me talking about the IPO in Hong Kong. Lots of companies they are actually wish to actually launch their IPO in Hong Kong is because Hong Kong, when you're actually raising fund in Hong Kong, especially go to IPO in Hong Kong, you can if your product is good, for example Budweiser, last year you were talking about Budweiser, they are actually prepared to go to Hong Kong, and if your company is big, for example, I'm not quite sure, perhaps Uber or other companies, if they actually come into Hong Kong, there's much more higher chance if they actually succeed in the IPO, then they can actually raise quite a lot of fund, in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong actually have quite a lot of capital, in Hong Kong. We are talking about billions of money in Hong Kong. Although last year they have some social problems. I would say that 10% of the capital actually left Hong Kong, go to Singapore.
Yep.
But still there are quite a lot of money actually is like stay in the Hong Kong. You can see the Hong Kong index is today is still to 28,000. It doesn't drop there. Even there is just the social problem. So in this case, you can see that Hong Kong. I think that the most important part would be the stock market and the IPO industry. Yeah.
And when it comes to that, I mean, if you look at some of the academic and professional research that I've done looking at the different markets, I mean, the problem with the market in Singapore is it's just dried up. There's not that many companies. I mean, there are a relatively high number of companies. I don't know, 800, 900. I can't remember what the number is. But the amount of liquid, large and liquid companies is just tiny. Whereas in Hong Kong, there's a lot more companies, but also a lot more liquidity in those names.
That's true. Yeah, because that's why the reason that why the people like to launch their IPO in Hong Kong, because if they actually go to Hong Kong, you are talking right. This is much more liquid compared to Singapore. Some people might be thinking about set up an office in Singapore, but the problem is if you actually set up an office in Hong Kong, you can at least linking to some Chinese customer much more easily.
Right.
Because especially the bank account, etc., they coming to Hong Kong. Most of the China, they will actually transfer the money. Some of the Chinese customers, they transfer the money from China to Hong Kong first, and then go to other country. So in this case, Hong Kong would be a very important city. I mean, at least for the last 5 to 10 years, it's very important. But I will say that it will actually remain for at least next 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
I think that all the people talking about Macau or other cities, whether they will become the financial industry. But I think that this is not something that you can replace for the next 5 years at least. Because Hong Kong is already located with. At least you are talking about IPO, you can see that, for the Deloitte report, etc., you can see that, the top funding, in Hong Kong, when you're raising fund, Hong Kong get the most top 3, about the fundraising, about the amount. And I think if you're actually interested, if you actually have your business, I think that apart from the US, if you're actually going to launch, IPO in US, you can also thinking about also launch your stuff in Hong Kong as well. So I think that if you're actually looking for raise fund, Hong Kong will definitely have I would say that it's a good price, especially your business have got the business model. Unlikely, about the blockchain, etc. Hong Kong's people, they are much more safety. When they invest the blockchain, they need to see the business model. No business model, they don't talk. It's not unlikely. Some people, they just have something like an idea, and then they can raise fund. But in Hong Kong, you are not working on that way. You need to have a business model. No business model, they don't talk to you. Yeah.
So let's now talk just briefly about for a young person in finance, if you think back when you started, a lot has changed. But if you
Yeah.
were to give some advice to a young person, like my students in the valuation masterclass are trying to learn valuation, and students everywhere are trying to figure out how do they enter the market, how do they enter the finance industry. What would be some advice based upon what you've seen in your career?
I think that actually there were two sides. In Hong Kong, if you actually become a lawyer or an accountant, these two, I think that these two profession is the most important part in the financial industry,
Right.
especially you're talking about IPO, merging, and doing lots of different stuff. I mean, contract, regulation, all about law, and also about the accounting stuff as well. So
Right.
if you want to doing something like back office, I think that you need to have at least have an accountant.
Yep.
You become an accountant or you become a lawyer.
You guaranteed a job.
You at least have a stable job, for the back end.
And there was one job that exists now that didn't exist when we started, or at least when I started, and that is compliance officer.
Yeah, but compliance, sometimes they have a low background there.
Exactly.
And sometimes some of them they don't not to be a lawyer yet. But
Right.
I would say that in the future they will be much more competitive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so one piece of advice is, look, if you want to guarantee you're going to have a job,
I mean, the back
being
office.
an accountant,
Yeah.
back office is,
Yeah.
critical. Yep.
Yeah.
What other pieces of advice? If someone said, I want to follow a career like you.
I would say that, I actually face quite a lot of difficulties, especially when you are doing, I'm doing quite a lot of sales job and marketing job as well.
Yep.
I think that we face the most part of the difficulties is about the regulation. When it comes to the marketing stuff, you need to be talking with the SFC about whether your marketing is work or not. It takes quite a lot of time,
Yep.
and at the same time, when you actually marketing plan, you need to be talking about the SFC or waiting for the approval. So you get what I mean? This is actually lots of restriction. I mean, in Hong Kong, doing the marketing stuff in the financial industry. And for the sales side, especially, you need to be regulated by the SFC. You at least have the representative. For example, type 1, you are talking about dealing in securities. Type 2, dealing in commodities. Type 3 is dealing in leverage foreign exchange. Type 4, advising for securities. Type 5 would be the advising on commodities. Yeah, and type 6. Type 6 is advising on corporate finance. If you are a sponsor, etc., type 6 would be something like hell. And then type 7, type 8, and type 9 asset management companies. And there are lots of regulation, but most of the people, they are actually, if they are doing something like sales side, face to face with the clients, or maybe doing something like a business, monitor the business, etc., then they need to have this kind of license.
I think it's one thing that people many people outside of the industry misunderstand. They think anybody can just go and start talking about buy this, buy that. But truthfully, in Thailand also, you've got to, if you're giving recommendations on investment advice, you have to be licensed.
Yeah, because especially in Hong Kong, if you are unlicensed, if the SFC just comes up to your office, you might get caught, Even in China, it's much more serious, if you don't have the license. I would say that if you don't have the Chinese license, no matter whether you got the UK, SEC, US license, Australian license, Hong Kong license, they don't care. What they care is whether you get the Chinese license. If you don't get the Chinese license, you got trouble.
And then
China.
I think every country's the countries haven't really cooperated that much to be able to say, oh, if you've got Hong Kong, it's okay. No.
No, it's not like this. It depends on whether you get caught or not. But if you actually coming to Hong Kong doing business with Hong Kong's people, I think that you cannot do any marketing, and you might need to be very, very low profile.
Well, to give you an example, as an analyst in Thailand, in order for me to go to Hong Kong and market to financial professionals in Hong Kong, I maintained a license in Hong Kong, all my career. And I've always been licensed in Hong Kong, because otherwise, going around and giving recommendations, is not really allowed.
Yeah, that's true.
So, okay. And let me just ask, is there anything that you do in your life that's helped you to be successful, you know, whether that's meditation, exercise, diet, you know, any fun or funny things that you've done, or some people go out singing and try to, you know, let go of the stress, but I'm just curious in your own life.
Okay, actually, I would say that the last 2 years I did change a lot with my behavior. You know, I wake up at 5:30, and people think that wow, why you wake up so early? I don't used to wake up so early though, and then sometimes I have some work and then listen to some meditation music, etc.
Mm,
And to fresh my brain, because you know if once I find that yeah, when you're doing exercise in the morning, and then when you focus on work, it's much more constant. You are much more focused, you
yeah,
know. And yeah, I think that maybe perhaps you know, as we start older and older, I think that exercise in the morning is very important in order to get a very good result, you know, especially meeting clients, closing the deal, or doing the marketing list, etc., calculation, the marketing plan, etc. You need to be very clear about your mind, you know.
mm,
So that's why I think that exercise in the morning would be one of the good way, and that I have changed some behavior for the last few
yep,
years. You know?
that's great. Yeah, I was at the gym this morning at 4:45.
Yeah. How was it? And then you find it today you are quite focused and much more your brain is much
Yeah, I
more
mean,
fresh,
I
right?
definitely I'm ready to go. Of course, my routine always includes lots of espressos too. So, you know,
Yeah.
okay, exercise and espressos, but for me also I don't drink or I don't party at night, so I don't have a hangover because it's just nothing worse than being either hungover or not getting enough
Yeah.
sleep the night before and then trying to keep your mind fresh as you're dealing with the day. I don't like that feeling.
Yeah, but you know in China, you know, some clients you need to be drinking wine with them there. And
Yeah,
they're drinking quite early, you know.
yeah, yeah,
And especially if you're dealing with some Chinese client, I think that drinking is very important.
exactly.
Unless you are already have a master class or maybe you're already very famous, you don't need to be travel to China.
You set the
Otherwise, I
rules.
mean, yeah, I think that otherwise, if you actually you know a normal guy, if you want to doing business with Chinese people, I think drinking tea and drinking alcohol is a must.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's two part. I mean, they are either drinking alcohol or
yep.
either they are drinking tea.
Tea. Yep.
Yeah, the Chinese tea. You need to know about the Chinese culture. You know
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
part. That two part would be. That's why sometimes when I saw some guru, they teach people. I said that okay, you're dealing with the Chinese clients. You don't need to be. You don't need to drink alcohol and drink the tea. It's because simply. It's because they already have is going to another level. You got what I mean? Because they are already a quite a high level, you know, and or maybe they already provide lots of value to the
right,
customers. So
right.
the people actually request them rather than
Mm,
they are actually going to meet those clients in China. They might actually ask the clients actually visit their countries, maybe they're in US or Canada or UK. You know, they actually you know this is really depends on how to become yourself, you know.
yep,
But I mean, for the normal people like me, I'm a normal people,
yep,
and I would say that your students are normal people, right?
yep, yep.
I would rather suggest them to doing something like understand the Chinese culture if they
Yeah.
want to doing business with Chinese customers, and that's
Yeah,
much more.
if I
Yeah,
was young today, when I was 26, I moved to Thailand from America. But if I
yeah,
was 26 today, I would definitely be in Shenzhen, Shanghai, you know, something like that. I would
yeah,
definitely be in China.
yeah.
It's
That's true.
amazing. It's amazing how fast things are going. All right. Well, listen, just to wrap up, is there any last parting words for the students?
Um, what do you suggest? Maybe you go first. You know.
Well, I think you know what we've talked a lot of different things, but
Mm,
one of the things that I guess I would highlight is we talked about regulation,
yeah.
and I think that you know from an ethical perspective, what I want the young people to understand is that if you follow the rules, you know the rules are tough, but they're there for a reason. They're not impossible, and all of your competitors are facing the same thing. So, do your best to follow those rules, because if you don't, particularly in Hong Kong, you could face a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's true. And I would say that in Hong Kong, if you actually come into Hong Kong, I think obey the law is very important,
Yep.
especially in the financial industry.
Yep.
If you actually want to actually meeting clients in Hong Kong or in China, I think that you need to be at least have the good regulation relationship with
Yep.
SFC
Yep.
or with some government in some
Yep.
case. If you want to become big, in the Southeast Asia, I think that you definitely need to have some networking. I mean,
Yep.
in Hong Kong,
Yep.
there are lots of events, bunch of events up there, and also about I'm talking about the professional. If you actually want to doing something like back office, I think that most of the people they are actually considered doing back office, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that they need to be considered about whether they are being an accountant or be a lawyer. I think these two parts, especially in financial industry, they need to be. It's a must. I would say that if they actually want to be success in the back office, I mean in Hong Kong.
Yep. Okay. Fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing everything.
Yeah. Thanks you too. Thanks for inviting me for an interview.
Yeah.